sellers usually have a lot of really great valid points because they're out there in the trenches. It's important to include them, but to really include them, not just kind of like, yeah, yeah, well, I invite you to the meeting, but actually listen to them, actually be open to their comments, to their feedback, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are out there day in and day out and having 10 customer meetings a day.
You are listening to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, the product marketing community that gives back. I'm your host, Louise Liu. Product Marketing Hive and this podcast are supported by Product Marketing Edge, a technology product marketing consulting firm. In this episode, Nacho Harriague, Director of Product Marketing at InvGate, shares his thoughts on building a holistic sales enablement strategy. Let's dive into it right now. Hi, Nacho. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Louise. Thanks for having me.
Great. So before we dive into today's topic, tell us a little bit about yourself and the product marketing journey.
Well, I started out selling advert games. So I started out selling video games to big corporations. I also led a marketing team. I founded a few startups. So I kind of always done a lot of product marketing without my knowing it necessarily as a founder. And in my other role in marketing, product marketing is a discipline that's not very well known, especially in Latin America, because we don't have that many B2B SaaS tech startups, for example. So I kind of fell into it by accident, just as a result of my work in other areas, wearing different hats, wearing sales hats and customer success hats and marketing hats and strategy hats, different things. Kind of build a profile and build the skills for product marketing without my necessarily knowing it or doing it very consciously.
So I was wondering, given your background, how does it shape your understanding of product marketing differently?
For starters, one thing that was really helpful was understanding how different teams think, what different team need. And so working again as a founder with product and building the product and having those customer interviews, working in sales and understanding the needs of sellers in terms of positioning, in terms of messaging, in terms of objection handling and whatnot, and then working to retain the customers that we had in our startup, and trying to understand what customer success teams needs in terms of enablement from a product marketing perspective, and even trying to find that and scale product market fit, right, as a founder without necessarily knowing that product marketing was a thing back then. So I think that those pieces really have been very helpful in being able to work across different teams and being able to speak their language.
Right now, you are the Director of Product Marketing at InvGate. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role and your responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead our product marketing team. We have two products and dedicated product marketers for each. And the really fun thing about this is that it's been kind of like building the engine of the plane, and a plane that was already flying. So this is not a company that is super early on. It's a company that actually has 8 figures in revenue. So it was, okay, how do we build the function? How do we build everything that the company needs in terms of product marketing without breaking the things that work? So a lot of the challenge of the past year has been, let's try to build on top of what built and keep everything that's working, and just don't break something that already is working.
That makes sense. Our topic today is the sales enablement. In your opinion, what role does it play as a product marketer, and why is it important that we need to develop such a strategy for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for starters, go-to-market strategy, positioning, messaging, like whatever it is that you're working on will die in a vacuum, right? And having pretty sales decks that nobody uses or battle cards that nobody reads is useless. Ultimately, the work that you're doing, yes, it will go on the website and the copy and campaigns and whatnot, but the people that are in the front line, especially for sales-led companies, those are the people that need to be taking this to market, that need to be testing this in the market, that need to be executing on whatever it is that you're putting out or creating, right? So sales enablement is pretty critical part on our work as product marketers, because it's the way in which we execute a lot of the work that we are doing.
last time when we met, you were telling me about the story of building a holistic sales enablement strategy. In your opinion, to make a holistic sales enablement strategy, what are sort of key components of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I need to kind of do a bit of a disclaimer. That is, I'm not a sales enablement expert. Okay. There are people whose entire careers are focused on sales enablement, and I'm not that. I'm kind of a product marketer's perspective on building a holistic sales enablement strategy. And for me, the framework that I use, just generally speaking, has to do with the customer journey, right? So, what questions do prospective customers or buyers need answered at different stages, and how do we enable our teams to be trusted advisors throughout that journey? And that means, of course, not just account executives, but also SDRs or BDRs, sales engineers, customer success. If they're customer facing, you need to be enabling them essentially. And at the end of the day, these people are your ambassadors. So how does the company look if they're misaligned, if they're telling different stories, if they're doing things differently? And the second part, and that has been really helpful for us to understand what to prioritize and when to prioritize it, is trying to get as much information as possible on what are some of our gaps in this customer journey. So we've been leveraging win-loss interviews very heavily to understand what the perception from buyers is when they come into the evaluation, what it's after, where our sales teams are doing great, where I think that they could maybe improve on. And also, I've watched an unhealthy number of sales calls to understand what are some of the things that we could maybe improve on. And going a bit more into the components, I think there's a few ingredients that are really, really important. The first thing has to do a lot with the sellers that maybe are younger or less tenured in the company. That has to do with enabling on the problems, on the jobs to be done, right? When these people are evaluating tools, when these people are looking out to solve for this problem, what is the actual problem that they need solved? What are the challenges, the typical challenges that they have? What are the things essentially that they need? What value, what outcome do they need to get out of this tool? And this is where things like personas, right? Enablement of things like personas falls into. Why do people even evaluate solutions to begin with? The second piece, I think, is enabling on positioning and how to frame the market for your customers and how to frame the market for the different prospects to understand where you sit. And this is where customer stories and testimonials to back up that positioning are so important. And this is another piece that I feel sometimes is underappreciated in terms of enabling sellers, which is, yeah, the deck is awesome, but if you don't have a customer story to back that up, if you don't have uh, a testimonial, maybe a 60-second video from a customer just saying the thing that you are putting on the deck, right? If you don't have that piece of kind of backup evidence, whatever you give the sellers might fall flat, right? Because at the end of the day, people trust other buyers a hell of a lot more than they trust sellers. So things like customer stories, things like case studies, things like testimonials, even like customer reviews on different review websites, those are also part, or at least the way that I think them, those are also part of the sales enablement strategy. Those are pieces that enable your sellers to be more effective at what they do. So that's also, to me, a part of this holistic way of thinking about sales enablement, right? Then, as you get a bit more, if you will, tactical or further down, I think there's a piece that has to do with what's your unique value proposition differentiation, and this is nuanced and a bit different from positioning itself, right? Um, so especially in very crowded markets, positioning can help you understand the big differences between the players. And in this kind of like UVP differentiation is where you get into the more nuanced things of how you do things differently. For example, could be that Salesforce versus HubSpot. Yeah, their positioning is quite different. But if you look at Salesforce versus Microsoft Dynamics as a CRM, then it's where you need to start looking at this nuance, right? As this smaller differences and philosophy behind it, and where you can actually enable them on how to position a bit better. And then the last ingredient is what I think is typically referred to, or the piece that at least sales enablement teams would take off my hands immediately if we had one, which is kind of like the tactical enablement, right? It's the sales process. It's things from work back schedules to access to power to multi-threading, all those things that are very related to how you are selling more so than what you're selling, how you're positioning yourselves, etc. So I think that that's the piece that most people usually think about sales enablement just in that aspect, in terms of, yeah, we need to have a upskilling program for our sellers so that they can become better at Sandler, Medic, MedPick, whatever methodology that you want to use. And yeah, of course, that's a part of sales enablement, but that's not the whole story. To me, the other pieces need to be in place before you can actually start thinking about, and very execution oriented, is how can we build a repeatable playbook for sellers to sell? But you need the other pieces to be in place first.
Recently at InvGate, you've implemented sales enablement strategy. Can you tell us a little bit more about the behind the scenes story about how you and your team make it happen?
Yeah, so we're in the process, I'd say, of implementing it. It's a rolling project that I think will take us a bit to get to where we really want to be. It really all started with listening to a lot of calls and running a lot of win-loss interviews. So that's kind of like the foundation of all of this, because then instead of us sharing hunches on X, Y, or Z, we can actually have customer quotes, customer recordings repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. So it's not a matter of opinion anymore, it's a matter of fact. So that's an important piece of the puzzle. The other thing was also finding kind of like the gaps that we knew the teams had from conversations, from quickly fill and like quick win for the sales teams, right? Usually there's gaps in collaterals or customer stories or case studies or whatever it may be, things that they need or they would really appreciate having and they don't have. So building those out as fast as you can and giving them more tools to work with also helps gain the favor, if you will, of sales team. And instead of you telling them, hey, we're here to help you, it's showing them we're here to help you. Literally, you wanted this thing. Here it is. I think that's kind of like the basis of how we started building out the program, is just building trust with sellers, building trust with the sales teams, and helping them understand and proving your value all the step of the ways to make sure that they understand that it's not you telling them what to do, it's rather you wanting them to close more business, and you sharing what you know from experience, from conversations with analysts, from conversations with prospect, with customers, with deals we won, with deals we lost. This is the way that we have found is the best way to position our products or to frame this conversation ahead of your having it. So I think that building of a trust relationship with the customer facing teams, right, whether they be SDRs, BDR, customer success, whatever it is kind of like the first step towards executing on this. If at the end of the day, if they don't trust the output of what you're putting out, they won't use it. So what's the point?
With your sales enablement strategy, how do you ensure that all the different counterparts, all the departments involved are aligned with your strategy?
I talk to a lot of people, a lot. So I think that the best way to make sure that you have that alignment is just have the tough conversations. Is just share where you feel the gaps are, listen to where they feel the gaps are, and what they want to prioritize, share what you want to prioritize, and then come to an understanding on what's the best path forward, right? I feel that that's where that the philosophy of disagree and commit of Amazon comes into play. Have the tough conversations. Hey, I feel that our sellers are doing less than good job in this area or that area or whatever it is, and then have the conversation to figure out, okay, this is the best path forward. We agree that this is it, and then execute on that. And you have to have this alignment across the different teams, right? As well as from some executive sponsor, to make sure that all the teams take this as a priority, right? And know that this is a priority for the company and not just for me.
From your experience of implementing a sales enablement strategy, what are the common challenges that you ran into? And then maybe tell us, how did you overcome these challenges?
I think that the first typical challenge is, why is a marketer trying to teach me how to sell? I think that is like a typical pushback from sales teams. You do marketing, like you do campaigns. You don't know how to sell. Let me do the selling. I think that actually it could have a different reasons, right? I think one is, for example, you not involving sellers in the process of creating this messaging and positioning and whatnot. So you're essentially telling them what to do. They were not part of building the solution, and that is a very valid argument. I think the other piece is something there's a misunderstanding of what product marketing actually is. At the end of the day, product marketing is kind of a bridge between the business and the product. So you kind of have the understanding of both sides of the table. And I think that's also important to make sure that there's a common understanding on the role of product marketing before you can actually execute.
That makes sense. So when it comes to measuring the success of the sales enablement, do you have any helpful tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately, if you're doing sales enablement, you want to impact, there's a few key sales metrics that you want to impact. You want to impact win rate, just as a whole. You want to impact competitive win rate, of course. You want to impact things like time to close, right? How fast are the deal cycles? Are they accelerating, or are we not affecting that? Depending on what it is that your priority is, you should be looking at one or the other, right? Maybe the issue is that we do have credibility, we do have the pipeline. Sales cycles are short, but we're losing a lot to one competitor or another competitor. Then competitive win rate should be that KPI. Maybe the issue is that these deals are extending into infinity. And that maybe has to do with the way that you're framing the conversation, educating the prospects on the problem. It could be a number of different things. But then that should be your metric, or maybe it's just a general win rate that you need to improve on. So again, there's no kind of like a one size fits all kind of situation here. But because you're doing sales enablement, sellers have very clear KPIs and sales processes have very clear KPIs. So the good thing is that you can find the best metric and you can actually measure against it.
So we're getting to the end of our time here. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to share with fellow product marketers?
I think my only thought is don't think of sales enablement as an afterthought. I think that depending on what type of product marketer you are, because again, there's a lot of different profiles here. Don't think about your job just being crafting amazing messaging and being super clear on positioning and like, okay, I crafted an amazing messaging document and I have this like very clear ICP. My job is done. I think I think if anything, my takeaway would be you need the teams that are customer facing to execute on whatever else it is that you're doing. So engage with them, build trust with them, build relationships, and listen to them because they are most often the ones that have the most important information to give you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you so much for having me, Louise.
Thank you for tuning in to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, a product marketing community that gives back. Check out our website, productmarketinghive.com, to join our community, meet fellow product marketers, and access free resources. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe and give a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. See you next time.